Pleasure to welcome back. It has been a while. The outstanding columnist for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. He's Dave Hyde. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave Hyde Sports. Dave, big fans from across the alley. Thanks so much for your time, particularly at this hour. But more importantly, how are you and your family doing during all this?
Well, thanks for having me, gentlemen. Everybody's going well. We have all the complaints or concerns that everybody else has, but I appreciate you asking, and hope everybody over there is doing well too.
We are. I think it's a little better over here than it is on that side. I will start you with our poll question because we're at least trying to make light of things going, or not light, but just trying to keep things light. What COVID-19 phrase annoys you the most? Fluid situation, social distancing, or new normal?
Right. I remember when social distancing first came out, which seems like years ago at this point, and I thought, there's a new one I haven't heard before. And shouldn't it be physical distancing, not social distancing? I think we're long past the curve of getting it right, but social distancing sounds like something you do on Twitter or something.
Well, it also sounds like a bit of an oxymoron. Social implies coming together,
Right.
okay, and then distancing at the same time. Do you believe there is there to the Dolphins' interest in Burrow, and therefore having to move up to one to get him?
Yes, I think there is interest from the Dolphins side. And I don't know if, we're guessing from the Cincinnati side. I'm sure they're listening because why wouldn't they? And the question would then be, can the Dolphins and would they meet whatever Cincinnati's demands are? They have 5 number 1 picks over the next 2 years and 4 number 2 picks. So they could assemble a good trade offer. The question I have no idea on is what they would consider a good trade offer and what Cincinnati would think would be a good trade. Obviously the offer being talked about and whispered and repeated by a lot of people is 3 number 1 picks. And yeah, I do that. But, again, will the Dolphins and will Cincinnati? I don't know.
It's really interesting, as we've pointed out, Dave, from Cincinnati's standpoint, because a lot of thoughts that they were very enamored with Justin Herbert at the Senior Bowl. But the other side of this is Cincinnati has an attendance problem. They want a new venue. And passing up on Joe Burrow would seemingly be very difficult for them. You look at this from a bigger picture than just, the quarterback. You see the whole thing. Do you think Cincinnati can walk away from local kid makes good?
Can they? Yeah, they can. I don't think they will. I mean, you can't argue both sides. You can't say if you're the Dolphins, yeah, I'd do that, and if you're Cincinnati, yeah, I'd do that, because both of them are, they're in similar boats. I mean, when you finish that poorly last year, and they played into overtime, so it's not like one team was significantly better than the other. Both of them need a lot, and the only way it makes sense is, look, the Dolphins have a ton of draft picks, and Cincinnati could use some of those draft picks to rebuild their roster. But if I'm Cincinnati and if Burrow grades out on my scouts, scorecard as high as he seems to be everywhere, then it'd be hard to pass on Burrow. And the marketing things would be a plus. The fact that he's from Ohio. Now, he's from a few hours away in Ohio. It'd be similar to a guy in Orlando playing in Miami. It doesn't really translate, but, it's not a bad thing either.
He's Dave Hyde, columnist for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave Hyde Sports. How much does Miami, and I don't just mean the Dolphins, how much does the sports city of Miami need the Dolphins to get a franchise quarterback and get it right?
We've been on this subject for 20 years, right? I mean, And you look
But
at
Dave,
I think it's been six
but Dave,
regimes, and all
but
of them,
Dave,
yeah.
you had Wade and LeBron, though, to fill some of the gap, also, is what I was implying. I mean, right now, and I understand the Heat had
right.
put together a nice little season, but it seems as if the sports landscape where you are could use kind of the jolt that Tampa Bay just got. You know, they got something they've never had. You know, Miami has had this, but they haven't had it in a while.
Yeah, it's been a sports generation or two, depending on how you count it, since the Dolphins really had that guy who, when he walks out on Sunday, you could say, win. So, yeah, from a marquee standpoint, look, we are deplete of superstars right now. We have nobody. You know, Jimmy Butler with the Heat is probably as high as it goes. So, you know, look at my poor job. You know, I lost a guy in Wade. I count guys by how many columns they can give me in a year. You know, Wade could give me 10 columns in a year. You know, Pat Riley, when he was the coach, gave me, 12 columns in a year. Marino, every Sunday I could write about him. There's nobody like that on the landscape right now. Please, Lord, send me somebody. So,
think about it, Dave. Not just that, even the little ones. Lane left you. Lane was good for one here and there. Now you don't even have an FIU coach to get you a couple here and there by saying something dumb. I guess unless you write about Jeter, there's not anyone in the Marlins organization worth writing about. Dave, you're on to something here. This is tough.
I tell the Dolphins, Marino would say that they wasted his prime. Their Dolphins fans would say that about Marino. And I tell the Dolphins the same thing. They've wasted my prime here. My prime is for the last 20 years. They gave me nothing.
What's the pulse on that coast for a big move like this? I mean, do Dolph fans, when you sell, we're going to acquire all these picks, and the fan base seemingly ate it up. They were in on the rebuild. Well, now the talk is, we may have to give up something to move up just to get Tua. We'd have to give up a lot more to move up if we want to get Burrow. I mean, has Dolph fan now become, hey, I want to keep these picks. I've grown attached to these picks. Or are they like, hey, do whatever you got to do?
Well, I think it's split. The number, I put it all in the number, this heading, which is simply, please get it right this time. Okay? I mean, whether that means trading up for Burrow, taking Tua, or Jordan Love or Justin Herbert. I mean, there's people in all those camps. But it's all under the heading, just get it right this time, okay? And that's really the difficult proposition for them from the outside, when you look at it all. Last season was sacrificed to make this decision easy, to get the number one pick or get enough draft picks to make a trade. And yet when you sit here and look at it, none of them look like a sure thing right now. Burrow's the biggest sure thing, but now you have people saying, "Oh, don't trade the draft picks." But also you have the bigger question: which Cincinnati could you come up with a trade? Tua's injury, Herbert and Jordan Love have questions about them. So what? Last August, when this all started to be really laid out in September, when you saw, okay, this plan is in motion, what looked to be, okay, it's going to be a season of pain, but there'll be a good answer at the end. Now you got the pain, but you don't have the sure answer.
They do not. And for what it's worth, Dave, on this coast, when we brought up the trade I don't know, I think my co-host David said it best, is that when people talk trades, they figure that every quarterback's going to be a bust. They never think he's going to be a great quarterback. But what we've been getting on this coast from the Dolph fan has been a constant, don't make this deal. Don't trade all these picks. So I've been a little surprised, but I think that David's onto something. Most people now think every draft pick's going to be a bust, don't they?
Well, that's sort of how you've been conditioned here. So you have to remember it's a new regime, and on some level, and then new picks. But yeah, I don't think there's that. I saw Adam Schefter came out last night saying the Dolphins they're not so enamored with Tua as people are, as a lot of people think, meaning a lot of the draft picks, I assume is what he's saying, or a lot of fans, because look, Steve Ross came out during Super Bowl week and said his health was a concern, and he's pretty usually a straight shooter. He wasn't saying they wouldn't take him, but he was saying that what everybody said, the health was a concern to them too, and so again, I don't. I'm curious. Their job is to do. They have more information than anybody inside the Dolphins. Medical history, behavior, talking with the coaches, expertise on quarterbacks, the system they operated, the players they were with. So their job is to fall in love with one of these guys and make that guy work.
Talking the Dolphins and whether or not they're going to make the big deal to move up, whether it's for Tua, Herbert, or what has been talked about here a lot more recently, moving up to 1 to take Joe Burrow. Dave, let's get to the reality of everyday life. The press conference that was held yesterday showed the curve as the president and his council thinks it's going to be, where it's basically going to take the next 2 months for the curve to go all the way up and then come pretty much all the way down. If that's the case, and if we're not starting to, leave our houses much before June, what do you think the sports landscape is going to be, particularly on your coast? Okay, first baseball, never mind basketball or hockey, and then whether or not your gut feeling that football starts on time.
Yeah, well, I think there'll be euphoria, let's face it, whenever we get back, from the standpoint that, everybody wants some fun again, right? And if sports are starting up again, whenever they do, that'll mean all these bigger concerns are gone. So, that's where I start. We get back to the old normal, which was what we want. Whether football starts up again, I really have no idea. It'll be, here we are at the start of April, and you look back a month, how much has changed in people's thinking and in health concerns and behavior. And I'm just not smart enough to project where we'll be in mid-September. And I'm not sure anybody really can. All we know is the NFL says they're going to hold a normal season, or they're planning to. Now, what they're saying is a normal, 16? They're not going into the 17 game this year, so a normal 16-game season. Now, that might be pushed back a couple months too. There's no reason they couldn't play, into March if necessary. So, I think a lot of things are on the table right now, but nobody can make a decision on, or even needs to make a decision right now on what to do.
Dave, as we said in the intro, big fans from this coast. Hope all is well with you and your family through all this, and hopefully we can talk again sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words, too. Be well.
Dave Hyde is a columnist for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Hyde, which is HYDE Sports. Dave Hyde Sports,